Oh, you want to talk about me being chair?
Hello. Hi, it's Jerry Roberts. Welcome to another edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Vaccine Year. It is Wednesday, February 10th, and we are delighted to have with us today Darcel Elliott, the duly elected chair of the Democratic Party of Santa Barbara County. Darcel, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So let's talk about your bio a little bit. You born and raised in Santa Barbara County, correct? Just kind of walk us through how you got from there to here.
Yeah, well, I was actually born and raised in Santa Maria. Spent half of my life there. Now I've been in Santa Barbara for as long as I lived in Santa Maria, which is a little bit weird. I still deeply identify as a Santa Marian, mostly because my parents still live there until they passed away, and my best friend lives there, and I go there all the time. So I went to Santa Maria High School, and then when I graduated, I went to CSB. So I ended up in Santa Barbara, and I went to school actually to be a high school history teacher, and I did like the pre-professional program they have at UCSB. I did, teaching assistant hours in the classroom, everything. And then my last year in college, I got involved in this group called Vox, which was, at the time it was called Voices for Planned Parenthood. I'm not sure what the group is called now, but that got me involved in Planned Parenthood. Actually, Gina Fisher, who works for Joan Hartman, is the one who got me involved in that club. And I started phone making with Planned Parenthood for Hannah Beth Jackson's 2008 state Senate race. Mm-hmm. And then in 2008, obviously the recession hit. So becoming a teacher was not really a feasible path, well, at least not in California, where I wanted to stay. So I actually got an email from the UCSB history department about internship opportunities with Hannah Beth Jackson's state Senate campaign. So I went and interned on that campaign in 2008. And I was working at Albertsons at the time, actually. Albertsons, that's behind Costco in Goleta. I worked there for 5 years as a manager, actually. So, that was my paid gig. And then I interned on Hannah Beth's campaign, and that's how I got sucked into politics.
Sucked in, yeah. And you say on your statement on the website of the party, you worked with the party for the last 12 and a half years. You've been the manager or field director for 17 Democratic endorsed candidates in that period of time. And you also work on the staff or have worked for a long time for Dos Williams, both when he was in the assembly and as a supervisor, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Democrats in Santa Barbara County, because you do have an interesting perspective sort of between Santa Maria and Santa Barbara. North County, of course, tends to be more conservative, less Democratic than South County, which overwhelmingly is Democratic. What's that difference, and what's the party doing to address that?
Yeah, so I actually always was interested in politics, even growing up in Santa Maria, but I was really the only one in my friend group. I remember when Al Gore lost the election, in 2000, I was so depressed at high school the next day, and no one else seemed to care. And so really my take on it is people in Santa Maria particularly, but I think also in Lompoc, they're much more working class, right? They're much more trying to just survive, and they've also had this situation where they've had governments for a long time that just don't represent them, or they don't really see what they do for them. And so actually, so Santa Maria has 16,000 more people than Santa Barbara does, but there's 16,000 less registered voters in Santa Maria than in Santa Barbara. Part of that is, undocumented folks or age, because Santa Maria is a younger city, but a lot of that is just people who just don't know why they should vote. And also, you say it's much more conservative there. It is in terms of governance, but there's actually 6,000 more Democrats registered in Santa Maria than there are Republicans. And so I've been a part of a lot of work in Santa Maria over the last 10 years. There's issued training for organizers to kind of teach them how to talk about things in terms that people understand about why government matters to them, like your bus route or whatever. Who determines that? City council plays a role in that, and also part of voter registration drives and citizenship drives that have been happening there for the last 10 years. And it really reminds me actually of the whole Georgia situation where, they talked about that they've been working for decades to flip Georgia, decades. And that's really what's been going on in Santa Maria. And so there's really active Democratic clubs there who are really empowered by the party to do organizing on their own. And so one of my number one goals actually is to hire a North County organizer for the first time ever. We're looking at hiring them in sometime between September and November to get ready for the midterm primary. And start working on organizing on the ground with folks who are already doing the work to make sure that the party is supplying them with resources.
Yeah, I remember when I came to Santa Barbara in 2002, one of the first big stories that we did a series at the paper was, there was a county split initiative then because people from North County really wanted to break off. But now, according to those registration figures that you just cited, it's sort of less partisan and more of a turnout issue now. I mean, Santa Barbara County has been tracking California in becoming more and more Democratic over the last 10 or 15 years. I think we have 46%, correct me if I'm wrong, 46% Democratic registration in Santa Barbara County, only 25% Republican, and 22% no party preference, declined to state. How do you account for that shift, which has been really pretty, I mean, in political time, pretty rapid in both California and Santa Barbara? Is it demographic? Is it that the Republicans, all went cuckoo, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think because I worked in the state legislature for 6 years, you see Republicans there, and they're pretty extreme, actually. But you would think that because California is such a Democratic state, that Republicans would be more moderate. And there are moderate Republicans for sure, but some of them even end up caucusing with the Democrats because they can't get anything done with the Republicans in there, because there are just really stark differences in California between, more of the inland area, the north and Central Valley and stuff like that, than the coastal area. And so actually, because there's been this like shift in registered voters, the Democratic caucus in the legislature, and I think this applies everywhere in California, is really split. Democrats are always considered to be a big tent. There's lots of different people with lots of different opinions, and you have the mod caucus in the legislature who are more moderate folks, and then the progressives, and that's really the split in the legislature is more the mods and the progressives than the Republicans even, having a say. To me, it's a little bit wild, because if I was involved in the Republican Party, I would try to be more moderate, because then, it's would be an actual alternative.
It's really those social cultural issues, isn't it? The abortion rights, gay marriage, even gun rights to a certain extent, that have really, I think, put Republican Party in general out of the mainstream of much of California. I mean, Californians historically, and I think you saw this in the last election, kind of fiscally conservative, but socially liberal, and that's where the Democratic Party is parked, and I think that's where the Republican Party kind of lost its way in California.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you this. You mentioned in your bio that you you really identify as a field organizer. The community organizing is what you really have focused on, and that you began that with the UFW, United Farm Workers. Talk a little bit about that experience.
Well, I got trained in the United Farm Workers model. So I didn't actually work with the United Farm Workers, but actually on Doss's 2010 assembly campaign in the primary, that's the model that we used.
Is that Marshall and Fred Ross Jr. and all those guys that, yeah, those are
Yeah.
old guys. And what does that consist of, that model?
So it's mostly based around personal visits and house meetings. So it's about really like one-on-one connections with people and kind of going through what that person needs, and it's not so often when people approach a conversation, you're coming at it from your angle, right? So it kind of trains you to come at it from their angle of trying to understand what their issues are, where the common ground is between you and them, and how you can help them to find their power to accomplish what they want to accomplish. So it's not about you. It's not about what you want to accomplish. It's about what do they want to accomplish and how can you be a part of that. And then the house meeting comes after that. So then, if there's someone that wants to get involved and wants to make a difference, then you host a house meeting, and it's very different than a house party. That's why it's called a house meeting, where it's only like 6 to 10 people, and then the organizer leads it, and it's very similar, kind of going through that, like what each person there wants to accomplish and what they care about and how to connect them to their power so that they can accomplish what they want.
All right.
It's about finding organizers and training organizers, which is what I've been doing my entire career.
Right. So 109,182 Democrats in Santa Barbara County. So I imagine being the party chair is an extremely lucrative position, that it's very highly paid. Is that, if I got that right, Darcel?
No, not at all. It's a volunteer position.
Okay, but it does take a lot of hours, right? I mean, it's I know Gail Teton Lannis, who just stepped down. I would often see her back when we used to go out to meetings. At meetings, whether they were neighborhood meetings or candidate forums or city council and so on. It takes a lot of time. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I definitely thought about a lot, is how much time does it take, which I guess I'll find out. But a lot of it is work that I've already been doing my whole career. And so it's kind of, time that I'm already putting into the party and putting into building. And like I said, finding organizers, training organizers, empowering them. My work in Santa Maria and other parts of North County. It's all just kind of coming together which is why when Gail and I talked, it kind of made sense for me to step into the role, because I was already kind of doing a lot of the work. The main thing that I'll be taking over that I'm not doing right now is fundraising. And you can make a donation at the svdems.org.
Let me make a note of that. Yeah. Okay.
But I have experience with fundraising from when I ran for SBCC. So it's definitely something I've done before. So that's probably the thing that's going to end up taking the most time. We have a extremely talented and capable organizer, Spencer Brandt, who is so good and so hardworking. And I've worked with him since he got started in politics. So we know each other, backwards and forwards. And, so he's really the one on the ground doing most of the work that we talk about together to figure out. So, we've had one meeting so far. We text every day and talk about what the plan is. And we're going to be hiring, a new North County organizer also. So that will also help.
But at the same time, you're still a county employee, and there are, guidelines and laws and rules and stuff that disallow you from doing political work on or partisan political work on public time. So how do you separate that? How do you guarantee that there's no overlap or no conflict in that area?
Yeah, well, I've been scheduling time every day after work for, checking my emails, returning phone calls. Again, I've been doing this my whole career, so most people know that if it's going to be a political conversation, I have to do it when I've already put in my 8 hours at the county. It's why when you and I were scheduling this, my first offer to you was 5:30 to 6:30. So, we're
Well,
doing
I
it.
appreciate you violating the law to do it at 10 o'clock. No.
I'm using vacation time, Jerry, just for you. I'm using vacation time.
Well, I'm so honored.
And this
So
is
in other
very
words,
relaxing. So,
I'm sorry, I missed the last thing you said.
and it's very relaxing. So, thank you.
Well, so you basically you keep a very close book, a very precise accounting of your time to make sure that you're not doing some partisan work on public time. But how do you keep your head out of it? I mean, I would think that it's difficult to say, well, now I'm working for the county, so I can't think about these issues that I'm concerned about as the Democratic Party chair.
Well, I mean, I work for an elected official, so it's a totally different situation than average county employees, where they report to all 5 supervisors, right? Well, they report to their supervisor, who, so on and so forth, who eventually report to all 5 supervisors. I only report to one supervisor. So, and it's one I've worked for 12 years, who, my values and his values are very similar. We do have differences, and we talk about this, and I try to sway him.
I just want to say I'm on your side in those differences, whatever they are, Darcel.
Oh, I know, Jerry. So a lot of, my values are my values. So they're my values at work that I try to work on. I'm a huge housing advocate, and there's 4 different housing projects I'm working on at the county, and part of my role as chief of staff for DOS. I'm trying to help people connect the dots. I'm not like on the ground doing it. And that's part of my values also as Dem party chair, and trying to support housing throughout the county, and how can we do it in a way that people can stomach if it's possible.
Yeah. Well, and then, it's sort of a related issue to that. And you mentioned you work for an elected official, and DOS obviously is someone who is, a real hard charging Democrat. As you know, the California Constitution says these local offices, which the party works so hard to win, city council, school board, board of supervisors, and so on, are technically nonpartisan, but they've become much more partisan in, I would say, the last, again, 15 to 20 years. So, if I am one of those independents or no party preference, or a registered Republican, how do I look at that and say, well, wait a minute, you're not going to be representing my interests while working for the county. You're not representing nonpartisan, and you're representing partisan. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it comes down to values, and that's kind of why the Democratic Party has gotten involved in nonpartisan races, because the party has certain values in their platform that they advocate for, right? And then governments do that too. And a lot of the local government issues, like housing, for example, that is something that actually more Democrats are more split on it than there's a lot of Republicans who actually, especially in South County, business owners and things like that are actually very pro housing, because they have employees who can't afford to live here. And so they want to figure that out. So that's something that I've worked on with the Chamber of Commerce for 10 years almost, I wouldn't necessarily say that the Chamber of Commerce is very liberal or anything, even though our chamber is a little more liberal than maybe some others.
Yeah.
So these local government issues, they are nonpartisan. I mean, there's values there, and there are Republicans that support it. One of the people, one of the people that we work with most on the Board of Supervisors is Steve Lavanino, and his chief of staff. I talk to his chief of staff all the time. We are always like brainstorming, trying to figure out solutions to things. And Steve was a Republican. He became a decline to state because of Trump and everything, and he couldn't really stomach what the Republican Party was coming to. But he still has more conservative values, and some moderate values. So.
And I'm sure you didn't talk to him about that independent expenditure committee and Dawson's reelection. I want to be clear about that, Darcel, right?
Yeah, actually, so we work with, we share the Cuyama Valley in Santa Barbara County with the 5th District. And we had a meeting about the, Doss serves and I'm his alternate on the Groundwater Sustainability Agency. And so Corey Bantalon, who's Steve's chief of staff, he's the, he serves on the GSA also. And so we had to have 2 separate meetings, like the advocates had to have 2 separate meetings because we didn't want to have Corey in our meeting with them. We're like, stay away from us right now.
All right. No, I guess, the thing that when most people who aren't, don't sort of live and die by politics become aware of the Democratic Party at election time, it's because of your endorsements and the endorsement process. And as you know, there's been, a lot of discussion and some criticism about that, how that process works. Do you plan to make any changes to how the endorsements are given?
Not necessarily the process. I think it's a good process. I think, we have a questionnaire that goes out to every single person. Right now, we're going to be making endorsements in April. We have Kathy Murillo, James Joyce, and Deborah Schwartz all coming for endorsements for the mayor's race. I think people have kind of gotten used to it. What I do think is that maybe we need to be more transparent about our process and more, I know that's something that folks have worked on for years and they feel like they've been transparent, but obviously there's something missing there because, there are people who still feel like they don't understand what goes on or how it's done. So that's something I've been talking with Spencer about and trying to use my organizing background to figure out how can we reach people where they are, and really try to make sure that they're getting the information that they need and understanding, what our process is and why we've made the endorsements that we make.
Yeah, and then the other, issue that I hear about constantly from Josh and Nick, and I'm not on this at all, but the timing issue of the making your endorsements, the party making its endorsements really months before the close of filing, and I understand the strategy is to try to clear the field, make sure there's only one Democrat running. But don't you also sometimes miss out on good candidates, particularly women who tend to, this is from Susan Rose, who studied these things, decide later in the process?
Yeah. So, so we start thinking about our timing when someone reaches out about wanting the endorsement. And both Kathy Murillo and Deborah Schwartz had reached out before I became chair. I've only been chair for 2 weeks, or a week, but
how do you like it so far? Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just being an idiot.
I'm not ready to resign yet.
Okay.
Actually,
go ahead.
So actually, I was thinking to myself, like, I would really like some grace period before we do endorsements after becoming chair, and some time to work on some initiatives I want to work on before we get into all that. But the chair of the elections committee, Joe Pierre, who's the Northern vice chair. So he got another follow-up email and stuff from candidates who wanted to start that process. So he set it for April. And then we put out a notice. I'm going to try to publicize it even more, make sure that everybody knows that's what we're doing. But part of the discussion that happens in the Democratic Central Committee is always, is there people that we want to consider? Is this the person that we want, or do we want to consider more folks later? And so it really depends on the candidate. Sometimes there's a candidate that's like so clearly we're going to support them no matter what, and we can't fathom another person jumping in, and so that's when they want to support that person. And it's not just about clearing the field, it's also about fundraising and things like that. And I'm curious about when the city council moves to even year elections and there's a primary before it, because right now we have this gap. right? There's no primary. So city council elections really start much earlier than your average general election campaign, where you know, you would start fundraising early, but there would be all this other competition with the races that are in the primary and stuff that it kind of makes it a little more challenging. But donors really want to know who the Democratic Party endorsed candidate is before they make any commitment. So so it's just
Well, sure, yeah, and it's, you know, I don't think there's much question that it's the most influential endorsement that there is. And, you know, I'm one who believes endorsements as a general matter don't matter all that much, but I think certainly the Democratic Party endorsement matters. I think the independent endorsement matters. And then I think everything kind of is after that, you know, maybe Planned Parenthood, if they make an endorsement, but that, you know, we tend to have pro-choice candidates. But let me just press you on this a little bit, because, you know, I look at people like Virginia Alvarez, Vicky Akoff, Kristen Sneddon, Kate Ford, a lot of women of color as well, who didn't get the party endorsement or weren't even decided to run by the time the party endorsed. How are you going to make sure that you reach those kind of very high quality candidates, and I think you'd agree office holders as well, who didn't and who actually defeated the Democratic endorsed candidates in those races?
Yeah. So, you know, we also have restarted this subcommittee of the party called that's candidate development, which was in existence a while ago, and then kind of, I mean, it's a lot of work, obviously, to try to get out there in the with your nose to the ground, trying to figure out like who the players are that might be interested in running for something. But that's what we did with this this last election. There was actually actually Virginia Alvarez did get a questionnaire, but she ended up not submitting it. But you know, this last election there was a lot less of that, of people jumping in later after this had gone out, because there was a whole committee of folks out there with feelers in the community trying to figure out who are the players and who might run. And like I said, it's always a discussion at the central committee when we go into closed session and have these conversations. The conversation is always, do we want to stick our wagon to this person, or do we want to wait and see if someone better comes along?
Can you explain just quickly the central committee? What is the central committee and how is it selected?
Yeah, definitely. So the central committee is the governing body of the local, the county Democratic Party. Every county has a Democratic Central Committee. And so we're under the state party, but independent of the state party in some ways. So we can endorse differently on like propositions and things like that from the state party. But it's made up of, every supervisor district has a certain number of elected representatives. They're elected by Democrats in the presidential primary, since that's the only time Democrats get a separate ballot from Republicans now. And so a lot of people end up looking at that and being like, what is this? So it's actually on the ballot every presidential primary, and it's you know, registered Democrats in the area. The number of seats given by supervisorial district is based on the number of registered Democrats in that district. And then there's also clubs, chartered clubs get a representative. In order to be chartered, they have to have a certain number of members. So, you know, a certain number of Democratic constituents, essentially empowering them to have a seat on the Central Committee. And then Democratic endorsed candidates for federal and state office also get a position. So Salud Carbajal, Monique Limon, Steve Bennett, and Dawn Addis. Even though Dawn was just barely not successful in her campaign for assembly, she is the Democratic endorsed candidate. So she gets a position on there also.
Okay.
So.
And now, if people are interested and want to, you know, see what is a meeting of the Central Committee look like, are your meetings open? I mean, obviously everything's on Zoom now, but can people do that?
Yeah. So if you're any registered Democrat can attend our meeting. There's a form on the website that people can fill out if they wish to attend. It's the first Thursday of every month at 6 p.m.
That would be tomorrow.
No.
No?
No, the first Thursday was last week.
Oh, no, last week. Well, I'm old.
Oh yeah, that's when I got elected as chair.
Oh,
I'm like,
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay, it's all coming back to me now. All right, never mind.
um,
I'm sorry.
and yeah, and also I'm trying to figure out. So I've been talking with Spencer and talking with some of the Democratic Central Committee members about, maybe starting a Dem Party YouTube channel, something where we can like create little videos, like short videos that people can digest, kind of explaining the process of what the Democratic Central Committee is and how they can attend our meetings, more information about the clubs, and because each of the clubs have meetings that people can attend, and then also introducing some of the Democratic Central Committee members to the public, anyone who's willing to do that. And because, the chair has often been, the chair is the spokesperson for the party, and they're the person entrusted to do that. However, the entire Democratic Central Committee, most of them are elected representatives in one way or the other, either by voters or from an elected representative or from the constituents of their club. And I think more people should know who they are and why they got involved and what their interests are on the Democratic Central Committee. So just so that folks understand that it's not just the chair who makes these decisions.
Can you explain the difference existentially between the Democratic Central Committee and Dem Women?
Yeah, Dem Women is a club chartered with Democratic Central Committee. I served on the board of Dem Women twice, two different times actually. Every club has their own. So there's 7 clubs in the county. They all have their own bylaws, their own processes, their own endorsement methods. Some clubs choose to just endorse whoever the party endorses. Some have their own process through which they endorse people, which actually Campus Dems actually have an endorsement process that they have people come and speak to them before they endorse them. I think a lot of people think they just go with the Dem Party endorsement, and they frequently do, but they actually have their own process. So, I think with Dem Women, I think it's just that it's because it's a South County club or something, maybe more attention is given to that. And it's, their board is different than the county board. The county board
and the endorsements are often different.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like their board is different than the Democratic Central board. So Democratic Central Committee board. So it's just a different club, and so they have their own opinions and views, and the number one thing to me, again, from having served on the board 2 different times, is just strategy difference, and so
what's it, how would you characterize it?
Well, just with the Democratic Central Committee, there's a lot of talk, of endorsing early to make sure that we that people have that party endorsement early to let people know, donors know, and stuff like that. And also trying to calculate, each race is different in our county. They're all, very different districts and things like that. And so trying to calculate, okay, how progressive can we go? How do we need to go more moderate in this race? Like, what do we think that, people can, who can win in this race? Who's the most viable? Things like that. And I think, Dem Women, they just go with who they think is the best overall, period. And maybe don't have as many of those strategy conversations, at least, again, from my time on the board, which I've served twice and I haven't served in a while. So I don't know now what their conversations are. And they do, endorse later. So it's just kind of seeing how things play out a little bit differently there.
And do they put more of an emphasis on endorsing women per se, on being diverse from that perspective?
I don't think so. Not from my again, my experience on the board that I saw, I didn't feel like they necessarily prioritize women over. They prioritized whoever was the most in line with their values around women. So.
All right. Last question, Darcel. I imagine if you are a Democratic endorsed office holder, an office holder who has been endorsed by the Democratic Party before being elected, it's kind of hard to lose that endorsement in a reelection campaign. Ergo, the conventional wisdom, which of course is always wrong, the conventional wisdom is that Kathy Murillo is going to get the endorsement of the party for reelection. What are the chances? I just checked with my Las Vegas bookie. He works for us part time, and it looks to me like 92% Kathy's going to get that endorsement. What do you think?
I think the Democratic Central Committee has endorsed Deborah Schwartz before. A lot of the committee members are similar to those that were on there in 2011 when she got endorsed. And also, James Joyce has a lot of very progressive values. He's doing a lot of really great work on racial equity that I think a lot of the Central Committee members are going to be really interested in. And so, I think they all have a pretty good shot at it. Again, yeah, it is the Central Committee. The thing that they really look at is where have people been on their values, and with an incumbent, it is kind of like, okay, so what have they done that's been so wrong that we need to pull our endorsement of them, basically. And so I'm sure that will be a conversation, and it's going to be a lively conversation. And,
We're all looking for
and because, and speaking of us, endorsing before the filing deadline, if you endorse before the filing deadline in our bylaws, you have to get 60% of the vote, compared to just a majority after the filing deadline. So with 3 Dems in there, we'll see if anyone can get to 60%.
So when you say all 3 have a pretty good shot at it, you mean they either have a good shot at winning or if denying their rival or their opponent as well, correct?
Yeah, that they could at least get enough support in the committee to kind of halt things. So.
Okay. All right. Hey, Darcel Elliott, thank you so much for taking the time and for taking vacation time to talk with us. It's always a pleasure, and congratulations on your new gig, I guess. I don't know. That's one of those things. Watch for what you wish for sometimes, but we'll be talking to you again, I'm sure, as we go along in the campaign year. And thank you again for your time.
All right. Thanks. Bye.